I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. Tonight we're going to talk about foster kids and foster families, and more to the point, Christian foster families, and the way one couple balances their faith and love with Oregon's foster care requirements, I think is going to impress you. It's our big story tonight. There are thousands of kids tonight right here in Oregon who don't have a home to go to. They're in the foster care system. A good amount of people say they are ready to step up and help, many of them religious. They feel it's their duty to help the kids in need. But they have to agree to specific instructions from the state. As producer Ashley Koch reports, for some religious families, that could be a real problem. But others we spoke to say the kids come first.
The Thoms live in a little house in Beaverton.
We've been married for 21 years. I should probably start over because I don't want to look like I'm guessing, but.
I had to take a second too.
Sorry, I did the quick math.
They have a big family.
We have 6 kids, 3 biological and 3 that we've adopted out of foster care.
Their ages are 9, 11, 14, 15, 18, 20.
Jeremy is a pastor at Hope City Church in Milwaukee.
That our God's grace is sufficient for all of us.
And Christina sings on the worship team. About 10 years ago, Jeremy and Christina felt the push to do more. And they started on the road to care for kids who needed someone by becoming foster parents.
That's a longer story and a little bit different one for both of us.
For Christina,
I saw a news article, I read it, and it was about this tragic story. There were 5 siblings, and they had lost both parents in a car accident.
it came out of a bond she shared with her own 4 siblings.
So I contacted the email that was given for their caseworker and said, we'll take them.
It's not that easy, but it started her on the road to getting certified as a foster parent. For Jeremy,
My journey in the foster care very much is a spiritual one.
it was about going beyond the walls of the church.
Honestly, even working in a church, I found myself kind of frustrated with the church because not that the church was bad or there was anything wrong, there were just certain things that we weren't involved in the community that I thought were really important.
They had 3 young biological children at the time, and they approached becoming a foster family as a big team effort.
We wanted to invite them in on this journey with us, and that's kind of how we even presented it to them.
The Thoms are far from alone. Faith is a powerful motivator for people to serve as foster or adoptive parents. According to analysis by the Movement Advancement Project, about 40% of child placement agencies across the country are religiously affiliated, most of them Christian. Research from the University of Tennessee suggests that Christians are 3 times more likely to consider fostering than others, and twice as likely to adopt. Families also reported that support from their church was one of the top factors in becoming a successful foster parent. But when it comes to sharing that faith with kids who are considered the custody of the state expects foster families to discuss their religious practices with their caseworker. The caseworker will help them determine, with the child, what's appropriate for them to participate in. And foster parents in Oregon are required to support kids in ways that may conflict with their religious beliefs.
Jessica went through the process, and that was the only reason she was excluded.
For months, we've been covering the case of Jessica Bates, a Malheur County mom who's suing the state of Oregon. She's a Christian too, but when she tried to get certified as a foster parent, she said she could not support LGBTQ+ children in all the ways they need support. When it comes to providing gender-affirming medical care, for example, she wrote to DHS, "I cannot support this behavior in a child. I believe God gives us our gender and sex, and it's not something we get to choose."
Just like many people of faith, they are called to care and love for children. That's all Jessica wants.
In November, a judge denied her request to suspend the rule requiring foster parents to support LGBTQ+ kids, writing that the rule does not allow foster parents to impose their own religion on children who are in the custody of the state, but it does require them to accept and support a child's beliefs. Bates is appealing the decision, and her case is ongoing. But Oregon's requirement could go national.
Here's what's going on. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services is proposing a new rule that would require anyone who wants to be a foster parent to support LGBTQ kids in their care.
This would streamline requirements that differ across state lines. But conservative attorneys general from 19 states sent a letter opposing the rule change, in part, they say, because of the effect it would have on religious parents. Writing, "The foster care system depends on individuals and organizations of faith. Without faith-based organizations and foster homes, the foster care system would face a critical lack of placement options. The foster care and adoption crisis in America is real."
We just felt the urgency of children needing a family.
But for Christians like Jeremy and Christina, it hasn't been an issue.
Everybody is welcome in this house. Everybody is welcome in our church.
It seems like such a simple answer, but it's like kind of like, no, we're just gonna love like Jesus.
They say the kids and their needs come first.
The reality is with all kids, foster kids, adopted kids, biological kids, they're their own people.
Even though they personally hold to more traditional Christian views of sexuality and gender.
There are conversations that we think like that are way more nuanced biblically than many Christians will give it.
They say that when it comes to caring for kids, those principles come second to the relationships with the kids they welcome into their home.
For us, it hasn't been so much about sharing our faith verbally with the kids who come into the house as much as it is about just seeing love in action.
I don't think I need to speak a lot of words. I don't think I have to pound Bible verses over and over into everyone that walks into my home.
Ashley Koch, KGW News.
Now we want to hear from you. What do you think about requirements on foster parents that might conflict with religious beliefs? We especially want to hear from you if you are religious and have been a foster parent, or if you've been a foster child, gone through the system yourself. Email us at thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. Moving on now. Earlier this week, we told you about a huge chunk of money that Intel is getting from the feds to supercharge the Silicon Forest. They're getting $8.5 billion in grants, along with billions more in loans and tax credits. All of that money is coming from the Federal CHIPS Act that was championed by President Biden and passed by Congress. Intel says the money that they're getting will be part of $100 billion that they'll invest in the across the country over the next 5 years, with more than a third of that, $36 billion, invested in its Hillsboro campus right here in Oregon. Now, the big announcement Wednesday had all kinds of Democrats praising the CHIPS Act and the money it's bringing into our region. Oregon Senator Ron Wyden, for example, Washington Senator Maria Cantwell, and the list goes on. But we were surprised to see this tweet from Oregon Republican Congressman Cliff Bentz. He wrote, "The success of Intel is tied to the economic success of our state, and in significant part, Intel's success depends upon semiconductor talent created here in Oregon. For this reason, I am extremely pleased that Intel decided to expand its operation in Hillsboro and applaud Intel and the schools and students it will train and employ as it moves forward with its $36 billion investment in Oregon." Okay, seems like a reasonable thing for an Oregon congressman to say, right? I mean, even though Intel is not in Benz's district, he's in the 2nd district. Intel is Oregon's largest employer, though, with roughly 23,000 jobs. And, you know, we're not shining a light on this just because Benz is a Republican and this was passed by a Democratic administration. No, we're doing it because he seems to want to bask in the glow of something that he was against. Yeah, he voted against it. Intel's $36 billion investment in Oregon is bolstered, that's the company's word, by the federal CHIPS Act money. And don't take my word on his vote. If we head to the clerk's website for the House of Representatives and find the CHIPS Act vote in late July 2022, Congressman Bentz was a no. So it does seem odd that he's now praising Intel for its investment in Oregon since he voted against giving the money to the semiconductor industry. It's not the first time he's praised the industry, though. Here's a Facebook post from 2021. Representative Bentz toured a semiconductor business in Bend and then wrote about China pushing for more semiconductor manufacturing in China. And in his last sentence, he wrote, "I will continue to look into this issue as we consider the economic and military power of China, as well as the importance of semiconductors to Oregon's economy." So, apparently, he does get that they're important in our economy. So important that when it came up for a vote to bring semiconductor manufacturing back to the U.S. in that CHIPS Act, especially here in Oregon, He voted, what was that? Oh yeah, that's right. He voted no. We emailed the congressman twice asking for a comment on this no vote on the CHIPS Act, and then his statement this week praising Intel. His office sent out 2 unrelated press releases between our requests over a day and a half, but they've not been able to get back to us. How about that? Now let's talk about health insurance and yet another negotiation standoff involving Regents. Earlier this year, the company came down to the wire to reach an agreement with Providence, and kind of looks like they're on the same path with Legacy Health, and that potentially puts thousands of you patients in limbo. The deadline for all this is to be settled in like 9 days, but it appears the two sides are still really far apart. Here's Tim Gordon.
Legacy is a major player in providing health care for people in Oregon and Southwest Washington. And Regents is a major health insurance company covering 30,000 people who have Legacy primary care doctors and 100,000 patients who visited a Legacy facility at some time last year. The two sides have been trying to come to terms to renew a payment agreement for most of a year. And in the final month before the contract deadline, a best and final offer from Regents did not cut it with Legacy.
Yeah, the best and final was certainly a surprise to us, particularly 3 weeks before the contract deadline. We thought we would have more time to continue to work together. We have and will always look to find a compromise that's in the best interest of our patients and the broader community.
That's Legacy's Maren Permit, who says what Regents offered does not match the reality of the rapidly increasing cost of health care. And although it appears formal negotiations are off right now, Regents claims it is talking with Legacy's leadership looking for a path forward. In a written statement, it also said, "We're holding the line on unreasonable provider reimbursement demands because our members, customers, and regulators have asked us to rein in the rising cost of health care. We're acutely aware that these negotiations have real impacts on people's lives."
So obviously he has a feeding tube in right now.
Yes, the human impact is real.
Yeah.
Just ask Renee Stansell, whose 5-month-old son Jonah has health issues. He's not breast or bottle feeding and is not able to move his feet. Her Legacy medical team at Randall Children's Hospital is trying to solve the problems with procedures, including surgeries to come.
If terms can't be met, this absolutely disrupts our lives.
The last thing she wants to do is lose the team because she has Regents Blue Cross coverage.
And it just, it breaks my heart that we've built these relationships with these doctors and then I can no longer work with them because my insurance says I can't. It just doesn't sit right with me at all.
There is a recent history of Regents being at the brink with a provider and coming to an agreement. Providence Health and Services also asked for payment increases that Regents said it couldn't afford. But in January, on the deadline day, the two came to terms. Jonah's mom, already having a stressful year, is anxiously hoping for the same here. If not,
then it's time for me to kick it into gear and start trying to find a new doctor that will take on Jonah, restart referrals, which takes so long to see specialists. It just starts the clock all over, and we've been dealing with this since January 1st.
Tim Gordon, KGW News.
All right, thanks, Tim. And Tim tells us the top leaders from both organizations are still communicating. If they don't reach a deal by the deadline, there are some temporary continuing coverage options for some people. Both sides say they will help patients transition to other care if needed, but come on, you guys, let's hope it doesn't get to that point. Coming up next on The Story, a new study shows how much money you need to make comfortably affording a mortgage in the city of Portland. Any guesses? 100 grand, 150, maybe more? Well, we have the answer to that question, plus where the Rose City ranks among the nation's largest metro areas when The Story returns. The Great KGW Food Drive has been really great this year. We've met our goal of collecting enough donations to provide more than 1 million meals to local families. Thanks for all you've done. We are not done yet. You can still give online at kgw.com/food drive. Now's a great time to give because all this week Pacific Foods will match the first $5,000 donated. If donating online doesn't work for you, no problem. We have a collection event at the Timbers game tomorrow at Gate F. Some of the most needed items are peanut butter, rice, and shelf-stable milk. Thanks for whatever you can do. Moving to real estate, new data from Zillow suggests that Portland homebuyers need to earn just over $160,000 a year to comfortably afford a mortgage in the Rose City. Zillow looked at national data from 2020 till now. No surprise, one of the big findings, home prices are far outpacing income gains. In February, the average listing price in Portland was between $470,000 and $529,000. That's almost 13% increase from 2020. During that same time, median household income only went up by 10.5%. So yeah, not keeping track, not keeping up. A little perspective here of the top 50 largest metro areas in the country. Portland was the 11th most expensive city for buying a new home, though it's still cheaper than most West Coast cities, including Seattle, Los Angeles, San Diego, and San Francisco. The average income nationally needed to comfortably afford a home, $106,000. Due to those high housing costs, home hacking has now become a trend among millennials and Gen Z folks. Basically, they buy a home and then rent out part of it for extra cash. Hey, still to come on the story, the final installment of our 5-part series looking back at the Oso landslide in Washington, which happened 10 years ago today. There's a memorial near the site of the disaster, and the artist who designed it used her own pain to help bring comfort to the loved ones of the 43 people who died. That's coming up next when the story returns. At 10:37 this morning, a moment of silence was held in Oso, Washington. It marked the moment America's deadliest landslide began, taking 43 lives 10 years ago today. An entire neighborhood wiped out by mud and debris. Now a memorial sits near the site, a work of art created by a woman who drew on her own personal pain to help others heal. Eric Wilkinson has the story.
To go to that place every time to see that landslide, it's truly very, very emotional. It's every time. I made a promise that I will do something unique and something special for each of the victims, for everyone.
For the longest time, when family members would visit the Oso slide scene, the ominous presence of the hillside itself was the focal point, a menacing cloud of dirt and misery looming over everything. Then came a break in the gloom that arrived with a purpose.
So people and family members who come there, they could find peace and harmony here.
Sovinar Muradian accepted the daunting task of memorializing each of the people killed in the slide. Over the past 2 full years, she created 26 panels, one for each family, 43 souls in all. The rust-colored steel monuments, some more than 7 feet tall, are spread throughout the grounds. Each is uniquely adorned with personal memories and effects. They're curved to give the feeling of an embrace.
I'm so grateful for families that they could open their hearts and they could share these precious moments and stories with me.
You did such a beautiful job.
One of those family members and one of those stories belongs to John Hadaway.
Thank you. I put my heart in a project.
Absolutely.
John's brother Steve was installing a satellite dish on a rooftop when disaster struck. Steve's was the second to last body recovered 2 agonizing months later.
All the information from Stephen Hadaway.
On this visit to Sovinar's Seattle studio, John looks over the plans for his brother's memorial, a fitting tribute with Steve's beloved White Horse Mountain keeping watch over him.
I've always said God put her at this point in our lives at this time. Nobody else could have did what she did.
It is in progress right now.
Sovinar found her inspiration in her own loss. She'd been working on an exhibition of 66 brass bells for her own late father. He passed away in their native Armenia in 2020. Because of the pandemic, Sovinar couldn't see him. That pain immediately connected her to the families of all 43 victims.
When you lost your loved ones, the life couldn't be the same again.
Oh, this is going to be healing for a lot of people. You have no idea.
After a decade of waiting, Sovinar hopes a long-lasting peace will finally settle over this place and the hearts who occupy it.
There's just not enough words. She will always have a piece of my heart for what she's done. She will always have a piece of my heart. Thank you.
Light and hope replacing darkness and despair.
It's just going to be life-changing for a lot of people.
That concludes our 5-part series looking back at the landslide on this 10th anniversary. If you missed any of the segments this week or you want to learn more, you should head to the website of our sister station, King 5 in Seattle. They have each of the pieces available online, and they even produced a podcast for extended coverage. You can find all that and more on king5.com. Well, that's the end of our show. Thanks so much for watching. We really appreciate it. And remember, the story, our collective story, that never ends. It just goes on and on. By the way, a brand new show is making its premiere on KGW right after this. It's all about the Portland Timbers. I hope you'll stick around for that. Either way, I'll see you right back here on Monday night with my one-on-one interview with the director of Oregon's Department of Transportation. You don't want to miss that one. That's Monday at 6:30. Have a great weekend.